Yeah, because Jason has to leave.
You are Commissioner.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are back in session. This is the last of our budget meetings, and so with that, we'll turn the time over to Emma. So introduce yourself and then hit the highlights of your budget, and away you go.
Okay, so I'm Emma Iannacone, the Public Information Officer for Bannock County. Thank you for letting me have my meeting this week because I was out of town last week, so really appreciate that. I figure we start with a budget, correct?
Do we need to go into executive, or are you guys good?
I'm okay.
Don't mention any names.
Yeah, don't mention any names.
I will avoid mentioning names. This year I am requesting a grade change for the Public Information Officer position. I'm requesting a change from grade 10 to grade 15. And I recognize it's a large jump, so I will give you the highlights of the reasoning why I'm asking for that jump. In my time, I've come to be more familiar with the salary range for public information officers in Idaho, and so I've included some data from the Secretary of State's office that I used to come up with that number. The median annual salary for a PIO in Idaho is about $70,800 a year. However, that also includes positions in Ada County, which cost of living is fairly different than Pocatello. So I based my request more closely towards the Pocatello position as well as Idaho Falls. So that's where I came up with that number, and I am unfamiliar as to how Bannock County classifies position grades. So I'm relying on y'all's expertise and knowledge there to make sure we're making the best decision. And I also wanted to highlight a couple of things I included in a letter with my request, just kind of explaining what I do for the county and how I've worked to build this position since it was created 4 years ago. My primary focus has been and always will be to communicate to the residents of Bannock County and elevate the county's visibility and reputation. So that's my focus, and everything I do is to support that mission. And I feel that I've done a fairly good job. There's always room for improvement, which is why I continue to advance my training. This year I received the Advanced Public Information Officer credential through FEMA, which is a relatively exclusive credential that very few people, especially in the state of Idaho, hold. That was a really cool experience that I'm very grateful for, and I believe it really elevated my abilities, especially in crises and emergencies, to get the right information to the right people at the right time. That was the message they drilled into us while we were there. And I've also worked to support the county's mission statement to be a leader in the state of Idaho. This past year, I created a group of fellow PIOs in the region where we meet quarterly and we share training and our expertise and our knowledge to further elevate the whole area in our public information and communication strategies. And I've also joined the Idaho Public Information Emergency Response Team, which is a statewide team of PIOs who are activated in the event of an emergency where they need someone to step in, which is similar to when I went to North Carolina to respond to Hurricane Helene, which was also another great learning experience. So I won't drone on because all of that is in this letter here that you can review. So if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them now. Otherwise, I can start to move on to the other aspects of my relatively small budget. I will touch on, because I don't know if anyone has already, the extra help line item in the operating budget. That's 110109400800. I just left that number the same, $5,000. That is to subsidize interns for the county. And then I've also left our operating supplies for candy and refreshments for events, also in operating, to that same $2,500. So no changes there. And then I'll move on to my B budget, unless we have any questions. For my B budget, I tried to reduce as much as I could. This past year, I had more capital expenses, and by capital, I mean like televisions and canopies and kind of those one-time purchases. So I was able to remove some of that supplement budget from FY25 out of my FY26 request. I had tried to combine my office and operating supplies because I don't use a whole lot of office supplies. More so what I'm using is these subscriptions for the tools I use to do my job. So I'm asking for $4,000 there and kind of broke that out in my notes there. I'm also reducing my request for travel for this FY26 because I don't expect to travel as much this next fiscal year. And I'm leaving my education the same because I do really value that and would like to continue to find ways, especially virtual, to continue expanding my knowledge in the field. I just raised my cell phone to $570 to reflect the most current billing that I received there. I also increased my dues just a little bit to accommodate what I'm typically spending on award submissions. I'm only a part of 2 organizations that require dues, and that would be the National Information Officers Association as well as the Idaho Press Club. And then on the photography line item, I dropped that from $2,500 to $500. However, the reason for that is because I'd like to move $2,000 over to the event center, because that's the primary chunk of what I use that line item for, is for concert pictures and event pictures up there. And I felt that that would be a more accurate reflection of how that money is used is in the event center budget. And then that way they can have a little bit more, control over how that money is spent each year. I would still, of course, be involved and willing to help them in coordinating with any local photographers they'd like to use. And same kind of thing with the professional services. I dropped that from $6,500 to $5,000 in my attempt to move $1,500 of that over to HR for their recruitment materials, because that's another chunk of what I use that budget for, is for our marketing brochures, if we want to advertise, spend money on advertising any positions that we need filled and that kind of thing. So I'd spoken with Matthew about that as well, so he was aware, and I hope that that was included or touched on in his budget meeting. I haven't had a chance to watch. So, and then the rest of that professional services marketing budget is for things like community events that we participate in, our advertisements in the Chamber magazine, and other random stuff that comes up throughout the year. So that concludes my request, unless you have any questions.
I don't have any.
I don't have any.
What's our email list up to now?
Oh, so that's a good point. Our email list has grown significantly. We are getting very close to 2,500 contacts. Right, yes. So I'm super excited about that. However, it does mean that our price will raise on our subscription to that constant contact service just a little bit. It's raising to about $1,000. So that was one of the reasons. Well, that line item dropped in total, but had to keep it a little bit higher to maintain that subscription.
Okay. That's all I've got then.
Yeah, I've already been through most of this with
Yeah.
this.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank
and,
you.
I appreciate your consideration.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, our 10:30, or not 10:30, but our budget recap meeting was postponed until Thursday, or moved to Thursday due to some other issues, so